Hello and welcome back to this week's Stags Talk. I'm Georgia Golden, and with the start of League One now upon us, we're going to dive right into Mansfield Town's opener against Doncaster Rovers. And joining me to preview Saturday's match is Rovers reporter Ricky Charlesworth for the Free Press. Thank you for joining me, Ricky. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, Georgia. Are you?
Yes, good, thank you. So not the ideal start for Stags with their Carabao Cup opener, 3-0 defeat to Sheffield United. I think everyone's kind of already trying to move past that, looking ahead to League One. Same can't be said for Doncaster Rovers, though, who are through to the second round.
Yeah, it was really good performance, to be fair, against obviously Stockport, a team that got to the League One playoff final last year. A bit of a change in terms of the personnel for Stockport, and obviously a new manager and a slightly different new style. But I thought Rovers gave a good account of themselves. Kind of withdrew a lot of, stood a lot of pressure first half. Indebted to the goalkeeper Tommy Simkin, who we might touch on in a little bit. Who was the hero of the day, really, saving a couple of penalties in the shootout. But took the lead, then got pegged straight back, and then kind of again were indebted to Simkin for taking it to spot kicks. So yeah, come out on top in the end, and it's a good little morale boost, I guess, for when the real stuff starts at Field Mill on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a good way to kick it off. I think depending on Stag's result was whether they would say they're taking it seriously or if it was a glorified friendly. But yeah, it was a good Sheffield United side. There was a couple of aches and groans, I think, but it's early days, and Nigel's already said, he said in his press conference for fans to bear with them. This isn't kind of the finished product for this side so far. And touching on that, we've just had the announcement of Owen Dodgson coming in from Stockport County on loan. He replaces Will Evans, who's moved to Plymouth Argyle, joins David McGoldrick, Michael Smith and Liam Thompson, as well as John Russell's permanent move over the summer. So good window for Stags. I think everyone's feeling excited about it. It was definitely on the agenda to boost their attack, which they've done. McGoldrick was looking good against Blades. Michael Smith's looked good in pre-season. I think people are still unsure what kind of lineup Clough is going to go for moving forward, but there's plenty of options there. How have Rovers done over the summer? What kind of business have they got up to, Ricky?
Yeah, well, in kind of typical Grant McCann style, he likes to get stuff done, pretty early. They had like a week-long tour of Ireland, so I think the bulk of the deals were done, ready for that pre-season tour. I think the kind of standout news is who's gone. Luke Molyneux was, the star of the show when they won the title 2 seasons ago. Wasn't as great last year, but obviously stepping up to League One's, you've got to kind of add that into the mix. He carried a long season injury as well, or a long-standing injury as well all season. So the fact that he got, I think, 15 goal contributions, it kind of holds itself up, if you like. And then they've obviously got, from all accounts, a decent fee for him. Nevertheless, he's gone to Salford and dropped a level. But once you take that out of the mix, the players they brought in, they've got quite a few Cheltenham players. They've got Isaac Hutchinson, who impressed last year for Cheltenham. Jordan Thomas from Cheltenham as well on a free. And yeah, they've kind of strengthened all over the park. Alfie May's a real standout sign. I think similar to McGoldrick, that kind of blue chip signing that, fans will hang the hopes on. I think McGoldrick's a great signing, by the way, for Mansfield. Michael Smith as well will be a really good one. I saw a lot of him at Wednesday. I know he didn't really, take off in the Championship, but I think in League One, he's as good as you can get. And yeah, it'd be really interesting to see what kind of approach Mansfield have Saturday, whether they start both of them. I'm sure McGoldrick will. But yeah, I think Rovers are quite, like I said, they strengthened nicely, but there's always going to be that, question of, is it going to click straight away? Because they've changed their entire front end of the pitch.
Yeah, we'll touch on it in a second, but Nigel did bring up Alfie May during his conference, so obviously a very admired person. Yes, as I said, McGoldrick's looking good. Rhys Oates came off the bench against Blades and looked really good, and I'm wondering if, because it's now kind of a competition for the starting spot, is everyone best foot forward kind of thing, because Rhys Oates really did put in a good shift. He came close to scoring, wasn't to be. He was last season's top scorer, so there's loads to play for, but it's whether he can edge out, these new guys. And as you say, Michael Smith's pedigree in League One is, not to be sniffed at. So the options are there. And then they brought in the likes of obviously youth in Liam Thompson, because there's this ongoing joke that, you know, it's Stags is like Dad's Army and squad and stuff. And it is, they have a lot of senior players, but bringing in newest signing Dodgson and then Thompson, young, decent players. It's a good versatile mix that I think Nigel's got at the moment. And over pre-season, I mean, obviously the new signings haven't had that run, but the older guys have some McGoldrick and Smith. But a mixed bag for Stags. Don't think Nigel's too pleased with his defence, because last season they had the third best defence in terms of goals conceded in League One, which was hugely impressive considering they were fighting at the bottom end of the table for most of it. So a great turnout. And then he's obviously noticed it's a bit leaky over these last few pre-season games. Is that something you think Doncaster got to capitalise on?
You'd like to think so, but I think kind of one of the worries for fans, certainly before the Stockport game, you know, the friendlies, was they didn't score in the last three. They kind of they didn't really look like they were going to score, you know, either. I think Adelican is a frustrating player. You know, he came back to the club in January for a second spell. I think a lot of people thought it'd be a lot better for having a full pre-season under his belt. So I guess we'll see with that. But you know, Billy Sharp's obviously the one of the main exits, you know, over the summer, and Molyneux. You take their goals out and they need replacing. I think it remains to be seen whether Alfie May can plug that gap. I think the others have got a chip in as well. You know, they relied far too much last year on Owen Bailey, who I know a lot of people kind of have talked about. I think he got 17 in all comps for a centre mid, for defensive mid, you know, effectively is some going. But you can't rely on that again. That's not going to happen again. I would be staggered if it did. So, you know, others have to chip in and kind of, you know, contribute. And that's where obviously these new guys come in.
Absolutely. I think with Mansfield as well, they had goals coming from multiple areas on the pitch. But I think it was what fans have been crying out for is that target man who can get, you know, 15 plus. Like, that is the dream, really, isn't it? To make a real good attack in League One work.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I'm sure there was a couple of rumours, you know, that Rovers were sniffing around McGoldrick, and, you know, not sure whether that's, you know, got any substance to it, but I wouldn't be surprised. I think he would be a ready-made replacement for Sharp. He's such an intelligent player, and, you know, even the last few years, you know, when he's gone to Derby, Notts County, of course, then he went back up to League One with Barnsley, and then obviously now at Mansfield. So how old is he? 38, 30, 37,
38.
38, and he's, you know, he's still dictating play from deep and getting in the right places. I think he's a great signing. Like I said, I think Alfie May can be similar for Rovers, but certainly not going to see him drop deep and dictate as McGoldrick does. And he pops up all over the place, McGoldrick, whereas I think May's kind of your little typical poacher striker. Doesn't really get involved in games until, you know, he has to. And I think that will be the hope. So I'm pretty sure he'll be starting Saturday, May. So, yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting game. As we'll come on to, I suppose, it's going to be, I think, very different lineups to when they last played pretty much a year ago, which I think was Rovers' first away game of the season, and obviously Manchester's first home.
Yeah, and yeah, as you say, I also wouldn't be surprised if Rovers were among those looking for McGoldrick, because when it was announced he joined Stags, there was reports of plenty of competition, which I think was the most impressive thing for Mansfield, is that they beat everybody else to get him. So there's obviously something exciting happening behind the scenes, because every signing that's come in has praised what Clough has said, and, you know, they're eager to push on. And, you know, I won't get into the whole top six debate because we'll be here all day, and I don't think anybody can really predict it. But it seems like that's kind of what they're working to. But it's one of those, you need to take the season as it comes. And on that, do you have any early inklings as to how Rovers might do based on their pre-season?
I'm not sure, really. I think Grant McCann's very vocal. I think the start of last season, obviously they were coming to the division fresh, and he made no bones about wanting to, you know, go again and get promoted again back to back. It was always going to be hard. It started well, and then they kind of fell away, so that was never sustainable. I would be primed to say probably, you know, top half. They were 14th last year, so anything above that is an improvement. I think top half would be great. Excuse me. I think if they got top 10, top 8, you know, pushing towards getting closer to that playoff pack than they were last season, I think is obviously upward trajectory. What's Mansfield are in the third, fourth season, is it, at League One level? So, they've been quite steady, haven't they? So something akin to that, I would say.
Yeah, it's been a steady growth, and it's just upwards, which you can't moan at.
No.
But obviously, I think now it's more about thriving than just surviving. And they finished 10th, which I don't think anybody expected. So naturally, everyone's like, "Is the next step top 6?" And it's whether they're there or not yet. And Nigel definitely wants to work on the top 10 and kind of use that as a benchmark. But it circles back to, this is going to be a very competitive season.
Yeah, I think it is. I think League One as a whole, I asked McCann the other day about, is it a stronger division? I think he said, there's more teams throwing money at it. Obviously, Wednesday and Leicester are the big guns. You've got MK Dons have come up and are throwing money at it. Huddersfield are obviously desperate to get back to the Championship. And then you've got, the likes of Mansfield and Donny who want to push on and improve. You've got a lot of teams that were nowhere near it last year, like Peterborough, one example. I think they'll be desperate to kind of go again and improve. So it's going to be interesting. It's hard to kind of... So looking at the squads earlier, and I don't think there's any standout squad. You've not got a Cardiff this year who have absolutely, just look primed and ready for promotion. I think Leicester, if anything, are probably going to get better, aren't they, and bring in more players. So maybe them. But other than that, I think it's pretty even League One, and I think there'll be quite a lot of teams that fancy themselves.
Yeah, well, Nigel said today that he thinks that it's about the 12 to 14 team mark who could be going for promotion, and I don't disagree, to be honest, because as you say, there's loads up there, and even the likes of Bromley are strengthening. Like, they signed Victor Adebayo, who left Stags over the summer, big signing. So they're all going for it. And then obviously with kind of the kingpins like Leicester and Sheffield Wednesday, it's going to be fine margins again, I think. I mean, that's why I think it's too tough to predict at this stage.
Yeah, I'd agree. Like I say, I think it's strange as well, isn't it? Because last year, obviously, Lincoln won the title, and a fair distance as well. And nobody would have kind of predicted that. Looked at the business they did last year. It wasn't eye raising. They're just gradual, like I said earlier, gradual build. I think that was their 7th year in League One, so that kind of provides inspiration. But yeah, I think you'd be probably silly to look past Wednesday or Leicester, but that's not to say that it's going to follow that path. I think there's Mansfield and Doncaster are both on upward trajectories. They've both got managers that quite rightly are backed by the fans, and they've both done a really good job. And I think McCann and Clough are very... I know there's a little bit of an age gap. Clough's been around a lot longer, but McCann's kind of got that kind of belief, I suppose. And he's delivered, hasn't he? And same with Clough at Mansfield. So I think they're two very good managers who are very suited to the clubs they're at the minute.
Yeah, definitely. You're right. And Nigel had a lot to say about McCann. And he said as well, I think one of the things he said was, basically, if you make mistakes against Doncaster, they're going to punish you. So he's very aware that there is that threat. And as I said before, we would touch on the fact that Yusuf signed Alfie May, who he said Stags had inquired about. So another impressive deal, but on the other end, because you beat off the competition to get a highly sought after target. So that in itself just shows that, as you say, Rovers mean business. So what do you think about Nigel basically saying, they need to be on it against Donny, otherwise they could be in trouble?
Yeah, I think it probably stands true the other way around as well. Like I say, first game's very hard to kind of predict. It was a bit of a mad game last year. I know it wasn't the first game. I think it was the second game of the season at Mansfield. I think they went in front just after half time. Then Donny pulled it back and then flipped it late on. But it was I thought, two entertaining teams as we saw across the season. The game on Easter Friday, Good Friday, I think it was Mansfield deserved the win that day. They kind of got the job done. But yeah, I think that, like I say, don't know an awful lot about how Mansfield are like to set up in terms of, the setup and personnel, McGoldrick aside. But I think Doncaster are, it's just that front section for me. It's a brand new look front four, if you like. So it's whether they gel quickly. But yeah, I can certainly see in the big goals. Just give it the kiss of death there.
Yeah, well, on that, I will put you on the spot and I'll ask you, what kind of game you're expecting, obviously with it being at the One Call, which a lot of people say is a very tough ground to go to. What do you think action-wise, and also, if you dare, a score prediction?
Yeah, well, I'll go for a repeat of last season. I don't know if it'll pan out exactly how it did last year, but I'll go for 2-1 to Rovers. I think it'd be an entertaining game. I presume big crowd will be there. I think Doncaster have sold out their allocation for that. To stand behind the goal. So it's not a derby, but it's a localish game. So I think for first games of the season, it's a really good one, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It is I think a lot of people are excited about it. So Ricky says 2-1 to Rovers. Do you agree with him? Let us know in the comments. I am holding my judgment just for a little bit longer, as I can't call it. I think if Stags can, tighten the defence, I can see them playing well, but they're already aware that Rovers, as Clough says, will punish them if they make any mistakes. So that's it for us on Stags Talk for this week. Thank you very much to Ricky for joining us, and we'll catch you again next week.